Imagine being the most powerful woman on the planet, the face on the currency of 15 different nations, yet being the only citizen in your country who effectively has no voice at the ballot box. For 70 long years, Queen Elizabeth II occupied the most influential seat in the United Kingdom, yet she never once stepped into a voting booth or cast a ballot. To many of us, the right to vote is our greatest civic power, but for the Queen, her greatest power lay in her absolute, unwavering silence. It is a staggering thought that through 15 different prime ministers, starting from the legendary Winston Churchill in the 1950s, all the way to Liz Truss in 2022, not a single one of them truly knew where her political loyalties lay. She was the world's ultimate keeper of secrets. While the rest of the world argued over policies, protests, and elections, Her Majesty remained a calm island of neutrality in a sea of political chaos. This was not because she lacked an opinion, but because she understood a profound truth. Once a monarch speaks their mind, the crown loses its ability to unite everyone. Before we explore the hidden discipline of her royal life further, please take a moment to click the like button if you have always admired the Queen's grace, and subscribe to join our community of history enthusiasts. We would love to hear from you in the comments section. Do you think you could remain silent about your personal beliefs for 70 years just to serve your country? The weekly meetings between the Queen and her prime ministers were the stuff of legend, held in the deepest privacy of the palace. Behind those closed doors, she was far more than a figurehead. She was a seasoned advisor who had seen it all. In his memoirs, one former prime minister recounted the atmosphere of these audiences, noting that she would never tell him what to do, but would simply ask with a tilted head, "Are you quite sure this particular path is the most prudent for the people at this time?" Her role was to listen, to warn, and to advise, but never to command. This incredible self-control ensured that no matter which political party was in power, the Queen remained a steady hand for the entire nation. She sacrificed her own right to a political identity to ensure the crown belonged to every citizen, regardless of their vote. But the constraints on her life went far beyond the halls of Parliament. In fact, the control over her daily existence reached right down to the very plate in front of her. Not only was her voice restricted, but even the most common, everyday foods were strictly forbidden from her table for reasons that involved high-level security and ancient tradition. What could be so dangerous about a simple meal? We will reveal those culinary secrets next. The phrase dining like royalty often conjures images of endless indulgence and exotic delicacies, but for Queen Elizabeth, the dinner table was a place of surprising discipline and strict boundaries. While she could have requested any dish from the world's finest chefs, there were many common ingredients she never allowed herself to touch. Most famous among these was garlic. The reason was purely practical. As a monarch who spent hours every day in close-quarters conversation with world leaders and common citizens alike, she believed it was a matter of basic courtesy to ensure her breath was never offensive. A former palace chef once remarked that the Queen's menus were carefully scrutinized to ensure they were garlic-free zones, a testament to her constant awareness of her public role. Even more serious were the restrictions on shellfish and foreign tap water. To many of us, a plate of fresh oysters or mussels is a luxury, but to the Queen, it was a gastronomical minefield. The risk of food poisoning or a gastrointestinal infection was simply too high. If the Queen were to fall ill, it wouldn't just be a personal inconvenience. It would mean the cancellation of state events and international concern. She lived her life according to a rigid schedule, where being unwell was not an option. Therefore, during her hundreds of overseas tours, she strictly avoided any food or drink that carried even the slightest risk, choosing safety over flavor every single time. This same level of caution extended to her identity itself. In an era where celebrities and influencers sign autographs for almost anyone, Queen Elizabeth never signed her name for a fan. To her, a signature was not a souvenir. It was a legal instrument of the state. The ban on autographs was a vital security measure to prevent the forgery of her handwriting on official documents. This rarity has made her signature one of the most coveted in history. For instance, an old Christmas card from 1954, signed by the Queen and Prince Philip, was once valued at nearly $6,000. For most people, the only way to ever see her handwriting was on a rare, cherished holiday greeting. It is fascinating to realize that while her life was governed by such meticulous rules on what she could eat or sign, her intellectual foundation was built in a way that is entirely foreign to most of us. You might assume that a woman of such immense wisdom and intelligence was the product of the world's most elite universities. However, despite her immense wealth and status, she never once sat in a classroom with other children or experienced the simple life of a student. The secrets of her unique education and how she was prepared for the throne without ever attending a formal school will be revealed in our next chapter. For many of us, the memories of our youth are tied to the sounds of school bells, the chatter of classmates in crowded hallways, and the shared experience of learning in a traditional classroom. Yet, one of the most remarkable facts about the late Queen Elizabeth II is that she never once experienced any of these things. Despite being one of the most knowledgeable and astute women of her era, she never attended a formal school, nor did she ever sit for a public examination. Her education was a solitary journey, conducted entirely within the silent, hallowed halls of the palace, away from the eyes and influence of her peers. While her upbringing might seem like the ultimate luxury, it was actually a highly focused and rigorous preparation for a destiny she did not choose. Following her father's unexpected ascension to the throne in 1936, the young Princess Elizabeth began a specialized curriculum that would make a modern university degree look simple. She was placed under the direct tutelage of Henry Martin, the Vice Provost of Eton College, one of the world's most prestigious institutions. But instead of studying broad subjects like algebra or chemistry, her focus was narrowed toward the immense weight of her future role: constitutional history and law. Imagine a young girl sitting at a heavy mahogany desk, surrounded by ancient, leather-bound volumes, dissecting the intricate legal frameworks that have held the British Empire together for centuries. Those who knew her then often recalled a student of immense discipline. One former palace aide once noted in a memoir that even as a teenager, she possessed a terrifyingly focused mind, treating her lessons not as a chore, but as a sacred duty. This elite form of homeschooling ensured that by the time she was crowned, she possessed a deeper understanding of the British Constitution than almost any politician she would ever meet. For those who value the traditions of self-discipline and specialized training, the Queen's education is a testament to the idea that true wisdom is not always found in a crowded lecture hall. It was this intense, solitary preparation that allowed her to navigate 70 years of global change with such poise. However, this rigorous upbringing didn't just provide her with academic knowledge, it instilled in her a lifelong commitment to decorum and order. This strict education created a woman of such precision that even the simplest social interactions, how she sat, how she held a fork, or even who she spoke to at a dinner party, were governed by a complex matrix of rules that she followed without fail for her entire life. How deep did these social restrictions truly go? We are about to step into the world of royal etiquette, where every move is a calculated tradition. In the world of the British monarchy, there is a concept often described as an invisible wall, a glass barrier that allows the world to see the Queen clearly, while ensuring that no one can truly reach her. This distance was not born out of coldness, but out of a deep-seated belief that the crown must remain sacred and apart from the common touch. For 70 years, Queen Elizabeth II lived within this carefully choreographed space. One of the greatest taboos in her life was physical contact with a commoner. While we might greet a friend with a warm hug or a pat on the shoulder, the Queen was a figure meant to be respected from a distance. To touch the monarch was, in many ways, considered an intrusion upon the state itself. This discipline extended even to the most intimate areas of her life. Perhaps most poignant for those who watched her over the decades was the absolute lack of public displays of affection between the Queen and her husband, Prince Philip. Despite a marriage that lasted over 73 years, a partnership that she famously called her strength and stay, they were rarely seen holding hands or embracing in the eyes of the public. This stoic elegance was a deliberate choice. She understood that her role required her to be a symbol of stability, an iron pillar that did not sway with personal emotion. In her world, duty always took precedence over desire, and her public face was one of unwavering professional composure. Even the way she sat was governed by a specific code of conduct known as the Duchess slant. This posture, where the knees and ankles are kept firmly together and the legs are tilted to the side, was more than just a matter of royal fashion. It was a symbol of modesty and humility, a way to maintain absolute dignity while seated for hours during grueling ceremonies. Even at her own dinner table, the Queen could not simply chat with whomever she pleased. Tradition dictated that she speak to the guest on her right for the first course, and only then turn to the guest on her left for the second. It was a social dance that she performed with mathematical precision, ensuring that order was maintained at all costs. But as we reflect on these immense sacrifices of personal freedom, we must wonder how far this control truly reached. If she could not even choose how to sit or who to speak to, what about the most sacred decisions of a mother's life? You might be surprised to learn that even the names of her own children were not entirely her own to decide. In the next chapter of her story, we will explore the heavy burden of royal history and the surprising truth about how the next generation of kings and queens received their names. For most parents, The moment they choose a name for their child is one of the most intimate and joyful experiences of their lives. It is a chance to express a personal hope, a family sentiment, or a unique identity for a new life. However, for Queen Elizabeth II, even this deeply personal act was filtered through the heavy lens of royal history and national expectation. She did not merely give birth to her children, she was providing the next generation of heirs for a 1,000-year-old institution. In her world, a name was not just a label, it was a title, a tribute, and a political statement. When we look at the names of her 4 children, Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward, we see a masterclass in historical continuity. These were not choices made on a whim, or because they sounded nice. Each name was a bridge to the past. Take, for instance, King Charles. His full name is Charles Philip Arthur George. Every one of those names was a carefully placed brick in the foundation of the monarchy. Charles for the previous kings of England, Philip for his father, and George for the Queen's own beloved father, King George VI. For those among us who cherish family legacy and the importance of heritage, the Queen's approach to naming her children is a powerful testament to her sense of duty. She understood that her children belonged to the nation as much as they belonged to her. A former palace historian once noted that naming a royal baby was akin to a diplomatic negotiation, where history had a louder seat at the table than the parents' personal preferences. This was the silent burden of her motherhood, the realization that her family was the public face of an entire culture. She sacrificed the modern luxury of individuality to ensure that the line of succession remained anchored in tradition. We have now explored 11 ways in which the Queen's life was shaped, restricted, and defined by the crown she wore. But as we arrive at the final truth of her 70-year reign, we find perhaps the most poignant restriction of all. It is something so fundamental to our daily lives that we often take it for granted: the simple, quiet freedom of being alone. Imagine a life where you are never truly by yourself, where a solo walk in the park or a private drive on an open road is a logistical impossibility. This final revelation truly captures the total price Elizabeth paid for the privilege of her service. The ultimate symbol of personal freedom for many of us is the ability to simply step out of our front door and vanish into the world for a while. We cherish the solitude of a long walk or the meditative peace of a solo drive on a quiet country road. But for Queen Elizabeth II, this was perhaps the most enduring impossibility of her 70-year reign. While she was often seen behind the wheel of her beloved Land Rovers, she never truly experienced the liberty of being alone. Every time she turned the ignition, she was accompanied by a team of highly trained, armed protection officers. Her safety was not a personal choice, it was a matter of state security that superseded her own desires. This restriction is particularly poignant when you consider that the Queen was no ordinary driver. During the dark days of the Second World War, the then Princess Elizabeth joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service as a mechanic and truck driver. She was a woman who knew her way around an engine and took genuine pride in her technical skills. She loved the ruggedness of the outdoors and the mechanical honesty of a sturdy vehicle. Yet, for the rest of her life, she could never simply go for a drive. Even within the private estates of Balmoral or Sandringham, the invisible eyes of her security detail were always present. She lived a life where true anonymity and total solitude were simply against the rules. As we look back on these 12 remarkable things the Queen never did, from casting a vote to choosing a child's name, or even eating a simple meal with garlic, a profound picture begins to emerge. Her 70 years on the throne were not merely a collection of privileges and palaces. Instead, they represented a lifetime of monumental self-discipline. She lived in a world of thou shalt nots, choosing at every turn to suppress her own personality, her own opinions, and her own freedoms to serve as the unwavering symbol of a nation. She gave up the self to become the crown. It was this quiet, steadfast sacrifice that earned her the respect of generations. She proved that true leadership is often found in what one chooses not to do. If you found this journey through the hidden sacrifices of the monarchy insightful, please give this video a like and share it with someone who appreciates the deeper side of history. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories on the lives that shaped our world. We invite you to share your final thoughts in the comments. After seeing the true cost of the Vungmyrn, do you look at the Queen's legacy in a different light? Thank you for watching.